Right, back tonight with you here on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. The DA has called on Parliament to extend its program so that MPs can conclude the Phala Phala Fund report. This as several opposition parties slammed the decision by the National Assembly Speaker to grant a 13-day extension to the independent Section 89 panel to conclude its work. The panel is due to report to Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula on the 30th of November. Joining us now to explain the call to extend Parliament's program is DA Chief Whip Siviwe Gwarube. Siviwe, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. So you were briefed then by the National Assembly Speaker that this is what the independent panel is requesting. Why would you doubt that the independent panel really does need this time?
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers. Well, of course, we aren't, our argument is not that the independent panel may not need the time. Our argument is that if now they have requested an extension up until the 30th of November, and Parliament is meant to rise on the 1st of December, if Parliament rises on the 1st of December, it means that that report will be sitting with the Speaker until Parliament resumes again in February in the next year. So our argument is, of course, the panel is within their rights, it's within the rules to ask for an extension. They've asked for a 13-day extension. And we're not viewing that in a sinister way, at least as the Democratic Alliance. But what we're saying now is that the Speaker now needs to make provision for what the rules call for, which is that she needs to table the report as soon as it is possible and as urgently as possible once she receives it. She can't do that if she receives it on the 30th and Parliament rises on the 1st. So logic would then dictate that you must extend the life of the parliamentary program so that then we can be able to assess and look at what the report says. Because ultimately, this is not about a programming issue. This is about a president who is facing serious allegations of having broken the law and possibly his oath of office. And so we can't have a situation where there's a report that's gathering dust somewhere there, and South Africans are none the wiser about whether or not the president has been cleared in this process, or whether or not the president is somebody who has broken the oath of office. And so it's urgent that it must be dealt with before the next year.
Whose decision is that, whether or not to extend or to stick to the current parliamentary program?
Look, the decision is that of the Programming Committee, which will be sitting tomorrow morning. The Programming Committee is made up of all the various parties that are represented in Parliament. Of course, there is often the unenviable, the challenge of people using numbers, particularly the ANC using numbers in such committees to overturn the decision. But luckily for us, the rules are quite clear that if no decision can be reached, decisions of the Programming Committee must be unanimous, and therefore there are some deadlock mechanisms that are provided for in the rules. And so that's the decision of the Programming Committee. It's not that of the Speaker. But of course, we know that often the ANC comes into some of these meetings very much prepared with the party line. Yeah. And what we would hate is internal politics seeping through into the workings and the program of Parliament and what we as Parliament are meant to do. And so we're going to be watching that process very closely. We're quite vocal about the fact that, then we must extend the program to allow the reports to be tabled, whether or not, whatever the contents of the report are. Right. The reality is that the rules say that the reports must serve before Parliament.
That's what I wanted to ask you next. Are you not preempting what the report is going to say? Are you not already going to a conclusion to say, the report is going to say impeach the president?
No, not at all. Regardless of what the report says, the reality is that the report must be tabled, right? So it's not about whether or not the panel finds that there should be impeachment proceedings, then that the House should convene and consider what it says. The rules are clear that the panel hands over the report to the Speaker. The Speaker tables it in Parliament, and Parliament considers the report. So even if the report says we found no prima facie evidence that the President may have broken the law and that law enforcement agencies must be the ones who investigate, even if that's the case, The reality is that here's a process that has begun in this term in Parliament, and it must come to its logical conclusion, because it is for the credibility of the institution, and it's really for the credibility of the process. Otherwise, then, one starts to wonder, are we gerrymandering timelines in Parliament to suit, political parties' own sort of internal machinations, in which we can't accept that.
So as far as Democratic Alliance is concerned, at this particular point, you have no reason to believe that the ANC, for example, is exerting its influence on this independent panel?
No, I think it would be mischievous to make that assumption at this point, Thabo. We are accepting the request by the panel. You remember we fought very hard to make sure that this panel is an independent panel in earnest, and we managed to get one of the people who were considered for the panel removed. We still have faith in the panel's independence. And so I think it would be premature to suspect that a mere request of an extension of the work is somehow sinister. But it's now going to hinge on the Speaker, on how she then conducts the business of Parliament in the morning at that on that programming committee. Because if she starts to steer the conversation away from saying urgency as per is the requirement of the rules, then we can start to say, well, now we are doubting the Speaker's independence and objectivity in adjudicating around the program. But she can't theoretically have any say in what is contained in the report, and we don't suspect that the panel will be amenable to that. We are very much still confident that they remain independent.
Now, there are some parties who are in the opposition who have already taken, even before the report is released, the view that if it finds in favor of President Cyril Ramaphosa, they will take it for review. Where does the Democratic Alliance sit on that?
Again, it would be premature for us to say, regardless of what is put before us, this is what we're going to do, because then what is the point of the process then? We have subjected ourselves to this process where an independent panel has been appointed. Let them do their work, and that's why it was also important for us to extend the arm when they ask for an extension, because we want to be certain that when that report is delivered, that due diligence was done. And so it would be unfair on the process too to then say, regardless of how they found, if they don't find in our favor, then we are going to go to court. Our interest is not, whether or not the president is cleared or not. Our interest is, are we holding accountable the executive as the Constitution is asking us to do? And whoever is guilty of breaking the law, regardless of whether it's the president or anyone else, they must face the same set of circumstances. And so we can't then start to dabble in saying, oh, well, if it clears the president, then there's something wrong with it. I think that would be really premature and quite unfortunate, actually, on the integrity of the process itself, which we have all as political parties, agreed to subject ourselves to.
Now, what I find interesting in the statement from the National Assembly Speaker is that she says, having due regard to the procedures, precedents, practices and conventions developed by the House and based on constitutional values and principles underpinned an open, accountable and democratic society, the Speaker concurs with the panel. Which means the Speaker sat and thought about, for example, the conventions and the practices of the National Assembly. Is it common practice that should a matter like this, for example, come to the Speaker on the eve of Parliament rising, that the program of Parliament would be extended?
So two things, Thabo. Firstly, it would not be the first time Parliament's program is extended. In fact, often because of poor planning on the part of Parliament, the envisioned rising date is never actually followed. So there is definitely precedent of the program being extended. In terms of what the Speaker is referring to, I'm assuming she's referring to the current ongoing Section 194 committee, looking into the fitness to hold office of the public protector, which of course has requested an extension in its work. And so, as I said at the beginning, I I do not think that on the face of it, it is unfair, unjust, or unjustifiable for the panel to request an extension, because we've seen the letter by the former Chief Justice Ngcobo stating that they are still considering work and there's a voluminous work that they're working through. And so we are willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that their 13-day extension will be enough for them to conclude the work. But where the nub of the issue becomes, Thabo, is that then Parliament can't simply fold their arms and simply say, let's go on holiday, while there's a report that's gathering dust, which may have deep implications not only for the president, but for the country. And so our contention is that extend the program. It's been done before many times for much less, quite frankly. And so this time around, it is something of incredible urgency. And I think that the country deserves to know what Parliament has put resources into, what that process has yielded from. Yeah.
Now, should your request for an extension, or whatever happens in that programming committee tomorrow, not go the way that you are requesting that it goes, is the action that you're going to take?
Yeah, we have to, because, I mean, we will be compelled. I mean, we can't simply, if the Speaker, for some feeble reason says, Parliament can't be extended, when in fact it has routinely been extended. The life of the program has been extended many times. We're going to have to then consider our options, and some of those options would include putting in a PIE application, or forcing the Speaker to at least make the report public. So even if she doesn't table it in Parliament, then maybe we would seek some kind of order for her to make it public. Regardless, we're going to have to really consider our options. Because, as I said, this is not just a matter of, because then we're going to start to see if politics is at play. Because, of course, Thabo, we also can't ignore the fact that the ANC is going to a conference in December. And so if the Speaker, a member of the ANC, makes a unilateral decision, along with the ANC colleagues in the morning tomorrow to say, no, the matter must be dealt with next year, of course, now it then becomes common cause that it's not about the extension of the panel that now we're dealing with. It's about now a possible political interference ahead of a conference of the ANC. And that's what we don't want. We do not want to conflate the work of the panel, which we believe is independent, with politics. And that's why it's going to become a very big test for the Speaker tomorrow on how she handles the matter.
All right, Siviwe Gwarube, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on Democratic Alliance's Parliamentary Chief Whip there, Siviwe Gwarube, outlining their position and why they would like the Speaker to extend the program of Parliament to accommodate a debate on the report of the independent panel.